Hello everyone, Michael here, part-time gamer, full-time dad with another World of Warcraft Too Long Didn't Read guide. If you like these guides, get subscribed and turn on notifications as to not miss any in the future. Quick aside to that, this is my personal recommendations and a basic starting point if you're new to the class or need a refresher. As well, this guide will assume no legendaries and an artifact weapon up to Concordance level 1. So with that being said, on with a Restoration Druid. So for anyone new to the class, Resto Druids excel at maintaining a steady stream of healing on multiple targets but can often struggle to react to big burst damage. It's up to you to know when the damage is coming and to plan accordingly. So first up, as a Restoration Druid, your secondary stat priorities will shift depending on raid versus Mythic Plus or 5-man content. We're going to focus on raiding here, but this should also be fine for lower Mythic Plus and Heroics as well. Resto Druid stats are pretty close in weight, aside from versatility. It's the higher eye level that will almost always win out, regardless of the stats. With that in mind though, crit and haste are first, then mastery, then versatility if you need that list. Following the above priority, your gems will all be the plus 200 haste Quick Lightsveen. Your enchants will be the Mark of the Trained Soldier on your neck for the mastery proc, Binding of Intellect on your cloak, and Binding of Haste on your rings. Your consumables should be the Flask of the Whispered Pact for the intellect, the Potion of Prolonged Power on pull for a minor DPS and healing boost, and the Ley Torrent or Ancient Mana Potion for mana mid-fight. Food should be the Lavish Suramar Feast for the intellect increase, of course, provided you're in a situation where you're using a feast. No feast, Yajari Salad is your fallback. For Restoration Druids, certain relics will hold more weight than others. As a very simplified overview, you want to look for Persistence, Knowledge of the Ancients, or Grove Walker traits. As a fallback, Essence of Nordrassil and Infusion of Nature can be considered. You're only going to look for things outside of that if the eye level bump is very significant, like 10 or 15 plus. Now, on to the meat of it all, the talents. Again here, focusing raiding over Mythic Plus. Level 15, you're going to be using Cenarian Ward. It's a strong heal that synergizes with your mastery very well and is pretty useful in almost all situations. Level 30 row is movement and survivability. I use Displacer Beast as it helps me to avoid mechanics. For level 45, it's pretty situational. A good default is Guardian Affinity though. The damage reduction is always nice and Frenzied Rejuvenation is super strong. Balance is nice if you find your raid spread out a lot and you want to do a little bit of damage while you're not healing. For level 60, it's a crowd control row and entirely up to you. I use Typhoon in case I need to get ads off my butt as soon as possible. For level 75, it's just Cultivation as a viable option currently. It adds a secondary heal over time to those healed by Rejuvenation that fall below 60% health. This is extremely potent when there's a lot of large burst AoE damage. For level 90, it's pretty situational. Inner Peace is best for progression AoE healing because you're going to use your Tranquility a lot. Spring Blossoms is good when your melee takes a lot of damage, and Germination is good for tank healing. Germination is what I roll as a default, but I do tend to focus on tank healing. I would suggest Germination is probably your best bet to start off with until you have a good feel for the Druid. For level 100, it's Flourish. It has by far the biggest throughput of any of the talents. So that's the talents. Now let's talk playstyle. Healing obviously doesn't work like DPS or tank in that it doesn't have any kind of rotation. It's more reactionary and thusly it's pretty wide open. So with that, I will instead list how or when you should be using your main spells. So Efflorescence should always be down under the main concentrated group of players taking damage. 9 times out of 10 this will simply be your melee group. Keep Life Bloom up on the tank that is currently taking damage, making sure to refresh it with around 3 seconds left. Consume your Clear Casting procs, which is the mana-free regrowth, on the active tank or someone who just took a huge burst of damage as soon as possible. You don't want to waste these. Use Cenarian Ward on cooldown, again most likely on the tank actively taking damage. Apply Rejuvenation to people as they take damage or shortly before you know a lot of people are about to take damage, and cast Wild Growth when at least 5 members of your raid are hurt and you have a couple of Rejuvenations out. Flourish, the talent we picked, should be used as near to cooldown as you can without wasting it. Those spells will be the bulk of your healing, but Swift Mend is a good quick reactionary heal on someone who drops low really quick. Regrowth is a good emergency heal outside of clear casting, again when someone dips hard, and Healing Touch when the damage output is just low and you're spamming on a tank. Outside of that, we have cooldowns of course, and a lot of them. We already touched on Flourish, so let's talk Essence of Gahanir, our artifact ability. This ability doubles the speed of which your heal over times heal for 8 seconds and should be used as a mini raid cooldown. you put out a ton of rejuvenations right before AoE burst, then pop this to heal people quickly. Coupling it with a wild growth or flourish can be extremely powerful. Next up is another AoE healing cooldown, Tranquility. This should be used right after a huge AoE burst for maximum effect. Casting it right after wild growth can increase the throughput by a lot given our mastery ability. Next up is Iron Bark, which should be simply used on a tank or player right before an extreme boss mechanic hits them. And lastly, Innervate. This should be used as many times throughout the fight as you can. If used on yourself, refresh your efflorescence, cast a wild growth, and spam the crap out of rejuvenations in its window. A couple of other quick mentions of spells you should have on your bars: Rebirth being your battle res, Sunfire, Moonfire, and Wrath being a couple of DPS abilities you can toss out when your healing is low, Nature's Cure being your cleanse, Barkskin being a self-damage reduction ability, and Dash being a very quick getaway spell. Also, if you talented as I suggested, Displacer Beast and Typhoon. So, with that, we're done. Get subscribed for more of these guides in the future, hit the like button if you did like the video, it does help me out, leave a comment below letting me know what you think. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.